Ended up with a pretty rapid time. He was fastest at one point, dropped to 5th with a few people improving towards the end of the session.
And just thinking about Tom Walkinshaw's interview, he doesn't give anything away. It's like dragging, screaming and kicking to get an answer. But Tom always been economical with any explanations and asked direct questions, manages to bat away an answer in a manner which, of course, leaves you thinking, well, why did I bother asking in the first place? Nonetheless, a car and a team that has come forward substantially this year, still looking for its first Grand Prix success, first Grand Prix win, and probably the nearest they got to it was in 1997 in Hungary with Damon Hill. Really had that race tied up, and all of a sudden, just laps to go, he backed off and finished second. But a long career since 1978. Still looking for that elusive first Grand Prix victory. Yeah,
they had a chance actually back here in 1989. Derek Warwick got in front for a few laps. That wet Grand Prix that ended up being won by Thierry Boots, and Warwick was leading it was only for a few laps, but he was in the right place at the right time. And unfortunately the engine blew up, so it was another case of bad luck for the Arrows team. It always seems to be when they have eventually got into a good spot, it hasn't always worked out for them. Well, we'll see how they get on this weekend. Renault have, as in the guise of Benetton, have had some wins here in the past in Montreal, but we wait to see what happens with them this weekend. They didn't have a great deal of success in the turbo days around this track, and in fact Alain Prost didn't win in Montreal until his 12th attempt from the days he was driving for Williams Renault. 1993 was when he took his first win on this Ile Notre Dame circuit, so perhaps for Renault it's not been one of their favourite tracks. Coulthard looks as though he's still explaining what's going on with the car handling.
Well, there's still that twitchy rear end, David. I mean, those hand signals, a familiar one through decades of Grand Prix drivers, and of course on a circuit that really punishes a car that is unstable, under braking, particularly the high-speed braking that we see so much of in the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And if you can just get stability into the car, then no doubt the speed will be there. But I think Ron Dennis did sum it up by saying that I think maybe outside of the top 4 is the best we can do. 5th, maybe 6th, Raikkonen back to his probably most favourite start position so far of the season. He's been in 5th 4 or 5 times this year, and currently 5th quickest as well. So if Raikkonen can improve and get 4th, well, McLaren and Raikkonen will have done a great job, as would, of course, David Coulthard.
We heard a few moments ago from Arrow's boss, Tom Walkinshaw. He was talking about hopefully getting Frentzen in the top 10, and his teammate, Enrique Bernoldi, hopefully in the top 12 or 13. Well, Peter's just been talking to Enrique Bernoldi.
Enrique, we've just been talking to your boss, Tom Walkinshaw, and he's hopeful that you're going to be top 12 in qualifying.
Yeah, I hope to, my best qualifying this year was 12 in Austria, and I hope to be even higher than 12, maybe 11s or 10s would be even better.
What's the car like to drive here?
The car is running pretty well here, and we're testing some different setups, because yesterday I had just a few laps and we're still setting up the car, but I'm very confident for this afternoon.
Is it a fun circuit? Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, like here, it's quite a lot of high speed, so unfortunately there is not many high speed corners, but it's good. I like to drive here, and normally the race here it's good because you can overtake, so I hope that will be a good race.
Very best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enrique Bernoldi then will be coming out on track in a few moments' time to join Alex Jung, who is the first driver to get on track. Mika Salo's just followed him down the pit lane, and we're seeing a number of cars actually now making their way out of the pit garages and onto the circuit. So we are now into the final 45-minute session that leads towards qualifying here in Montreal. half a second slower than the time that was set at the end of this morning's session by Michael Schumacher. Montoya had a great lap going yesterday in the free practice, but he came out just a fraction late for it to be completed as a flying lap because he picked up the checkered flag and wasn't able to complete the lap, but nonetheless showing the pace yesterday of the Williams. Let's take a look here, replay. Did he lock up a little bit coming down into the hairpin, or did he run wide? Let's watch. Well, it was the discs we're looking at more than anything. The amount of energy being dissipated as it comes down from 180 miles an hour to 40 miles an hour in just a few seconds, creating that red glow. On board here with Nick Heidfeld, and he's also building up to top speed, again up to about 200 miles an hour down here, and then just see how long he's on the brakes.
Very good into the pits.
Well, in fact, he's on the brakes.
I was going to say, he was a bit late getting on the brakes, so I thought I'll not say anything and see what happens. But of course, when you come into the pit lane, you can brake later than if you were taking the normal line for those final two curves on the lap. And sometimes it's a little bit disconcerting. You're sitting there and think, well, when's he going to brake? Oh, thank goodness he went into the pit lane. Yes, he rather threw our calculations out there a little bit, but never mind. We'll keep an eye on some of the others with our onboard views as they head down towards that corner. Kimi Raikkonen, his top speed only 319.3 this time. The McLarens were reasonably well up on those top speeds yesterday. Maybe just building up to speeds at the moment. Hopping over the curb once again, making good use of those curbs on the inside. It's interesting to note, I think, how Raikkonen goes through those last two turns in comparison to what we've seen in the Williams. He tends to make it a more acute turn, a more obvious swing right, swing left, whereas Montoya and Ralf Schumacher, Montoya probably more so, really almost trying to straight line it as much as possible and not scrub speed off, as I sort of get the impression that Raikkonen might be doing. Watching the arrows of Heinz-Harald Frentzen here into 8 and 9, you can see the car look pretty good under braking, under bumps into that corner. Now into the hairpin, just a little lock up, but again, good stability. He didn't have this yesterday, the stability. Certainly at one point in the session, we saw him undergo a couple of spins where the braking just seemed to be catching him out. We heard him talk when he came back into the pits on the team radio about how the rear brakes were there. Grip was effectively changing throughout the braking area, and it's amazing in a way, John, that the modern Formula 1 car, they're only on the brakes for 3 or 4 seconds at the end of these straights, and yet he's got time to work out how the brake temperatures virtually are changing during those 3 or 4 seconds of braking. Well, you can actually feel it from the car. It's a physical effect. You can feel how much braking, and all of a sudden the thing's slowing down, but you're getting it because the back end is starting to chatter. You feel this sort of momentary lock-up maybe of the rear wheels, and that says you've got either too much braking towards the rear, or you have to balance out the temperature of the brake, and it's just a balancing act between the front and rear temperatures and ensuring that one doesn't get too far ahead of the other. On board here with Jacques Villeneuve, out towards the curb, the camera in the curb there, and Villeneuve still in 10th place in this free practice session so far. Now, Honda, as we know, have got revisions to the existing engine here today. They have got some updates, but that's on the engine that they've been running all year. What they haven't been able to do is bring the new engine, and it is an all-new engine, apparently. Well, I hope it's doing more than 9,709 RPM. Watch Villeneuve being taken fairly massive chunks of that curb as he comes through final, and watching again Montoya going quickest in top speeds as Villeneuve comes across the line, and for Michael Schumacher going out of the pits. But Jacques Villeneuve remains in 11th place. That time was only a 19.6 and his best is a 15.5. Montoya is on a good lap here, so we'll keep an eye on it. He's got a couple of cars ahead. Bernoldi is the next one, and I don't know if Montoya's going to stay out. He's slowed down. He's slowing down just to find track position when he's coming into the pits.
FSD is not working as hard as I want. I braked too late in the hairpin anyway, but I think I like the rear to the braking, and the FSD didn't do anything.
And again.
Something that one. Guys, we get it quickly as possible, just to put the brake fans in, change the tyres as well.
And there you are, proof once again that it's braking that's being talked about all the time, from drivers to teams, adjustments to the brake cooling. That's what they're working on here to ensure good brake balance. Watch him, he said he ran wide here. Let's watch what happened. Well, you can see instability under braking.
Brakes at high RPM, it might be more effective to go to lift map 4.
And that was to Jacques Villeneuve.
Well, it's interesting, they're talking there about how the engine mapping, the mapping of the engine and the electronic control of the engine can actually help the driver under braking for these slower corners.
Heinz-Harald Frentzen going into the pits, but he was fastest in that first sector. Right now it's Rubens Barrichello who's fastest in the second sector, and we go, well, Coulthard, now we're back with Barrichello, and Barrichello running in fourth on a 1:14.7, looking to improve in a 1:14.5, and he does. Look at that, we're getting close to the 1:13s, and we're not even, well, we're only, what, 10 minutes or so into this session.
Well, it's great stuff. Barrichello once again showing great pace. The Ferrari team are still going to be the major threat come qualifying here this afternoon. John, we heard that comment on the radio about how they can change the engine mapping to actually help under braking. How does that work? What are they trying to achieve there?
Well, it's just to assist the stability process. That when you're braking, it's, you know, in the old days. There's.
Well, we've got a spinner. That's
Mark Webber, yeah. So I think what it does is that it's, when you had a manual control of a gearbox, you were able to use the gearbox and the engine to slow you down. With this being done effectively, this is a crude explanation, but you're just pulling a lever or it's being done on a button, and therefore you haven't got the same level of control over the braking, and it's done by electronics and fuel, and it's very complicated, and the driver's told just to adjust the map on the engine to help in certain conditions, and you know, a lot simpler than doing it with your foot in your hand.
Well, it just goes to show you how the complete Formula One package works together, and I think it's fascinating that you change the engine setting to help you brake. I mean, you would never perhaps think about that, but it's very important at this level of motorsport. Well,
Michael Schumacher deciding he's had enough of all this, and he's going to go out and do something a little bit better. He's currently quickest still on a 14.1. In fact, he's improved, I beg your pardon. He's just done that lap, 1:14.172. So Michael Schumacher has once again put Rubens Barrichello back in his place as the second driver in Ferrari. And Michael once again now fastest in that first sector. So what we thought may happen, but then we got a bit confused because the performance from the Michelin teams on Friday, and to some degree in the early part of this morning. Now Ferrari, Bridgestone, Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello are really beginning to get their head down and drag time out of this car. The best car in the field, the most stable car under braking in the field, and with an engine and two drivers to match, it doesn't really get an awful lot better.
No, it's going to be tough to beat them once again here in Montreal. This is a circuit that should suit the Ferrari package as a whole. It's good anyway, just about every track we go to.
The theoretical fastest lap is a 1:13.813. One again, right, I mean, wonderful to watch Schumacher. He just throws the car in and balances it so well. Well, he's just fractionally under the theoretical lap possible, but the first man into the 1:13s with a 9.66.
Well, we're into the 1:13s already. We still haven't got into qualifying, so the lap times are going to be incredibly fast here this weekend. Massive improvements on what we've seen in previous years, and partly due to some changes to the track. The hairpin has been shortened, remember. Good improvement there from Nick Heidfeld up to 5th place. The hairpin has been brought back slightly. Hasn't made a huge difference. It's also been resurfaced, so that does explain a little bit the faster times that we're seeing, but I think the major part of the improvement does come from the tyre battle between Bridgestone and Michelin. Each tyre company coming up with something better and better each time we go to a different venue. Now Villeneuve is waiting at the moment. Ralf Schumacher coming back out
on new tyres, and we're just about 1.8 seconds under last year's pole time. And this run from Ralf Schumacher, I would think, is going to the stage where Williams are going to start looking at doing a qualifying setup and just deciding finally, if they haven't already decided, I'm certain that they have, on their tyre choice. And Gerhard, with a long poker face, the Austrian, gives nothing away in his expression, certainly in his professional life. Privately, well, a different animal altogether.
Winner of the Grand Prix here back in 1992 when he was driving for the McLaren Honda team. But on this occasion, his concentration is with the Williams BMW team. We're looking in the McLaren pit. David Coulthard is pushed back in. Coulthard currently down in 12th place. He hasn't really put together a run just recently. His teammate Raikkonen is 6th at this point, and we're now riding on board with Mika Salo in the Toyota, putting in a reasonably good lap here. He's currently 17th. Now the rev counter working,
which is, if a car is unstable, that's where you're going to see it. Now it comes down to these final two, right, left, flicks onto pit straight in it. Oh, he's got into the pit lane. Well,
just to show us once again that you can come in at the last moment. In fact, he features in the top 6 on the speed traps. He's 6th at the moment on a 326 kilometers per hour, so that's about 203 miles per hour. getting onto the brakes into this last corner, as we're now watching Ralf Schumacher heading on round through the first couple of turns, and Ralf currently 4th fastest. Let's see where this lap puts him, because remember, he's on a new set of tyres here.
Watch for purple on the data screen. That's on page 5. Ralf Schumacher comes round. Yes, he's 0.2 of a second up. So that fresh set of tyres, I don't know if they'll be using any more RPM normally.
Oh, we've got a Renault off big time here.
Trulli.
Yeah, it is Jarno Trulli who's taken it off at turn number 8.
And that's not good news for Ralf Schumacher, because there's going to be yellow flags down there. Trulli has lost the engine. There you see Ralf Schumacher coming round, and he will be unhappy about that. Trulli gets the Renault going again, but that was a high-speed spin again, probably caused, in fact, almost certainly caused, let's be positive and say 100% caused by instability at the rear of the car.
Let's take a look. Well, he didn't even try and make the corner. The car was unstable on turn-in, so he just shot straight across and managed to miss the tyre barrier by not very much. So there, look, there was the lock-up. You just saw the lock-up as he came under the bridge, and off he went. So, well, whether there was a problem there or not, I don't know, but there's certainly a good plume of tyre smoke coming up as he came under the bridge.
Well, it certainly was travelling a lot faster than you would need to do if you were taking the corner normally. That's the first thing. Whether that was caused by a lock-up, whether there was a secondary problem that we couldn't see, we didn't get an angle. We may have another angle of that incident, which you can replay. But certainly a scary moment, because he got very close to the barriers, and I can imagine that Jarno Trulli's little heart was well and truly in his mouth at that trip.
Now, Montoya's on a quick lap here. He's currently 3rd fastest. Good first sector, about a few hundred slow, and a good second sector. Up overall on Michael Schumacher's fastest time so far.
Well, nearly 0.3 of a second up, and well, we were told we were going to see lap times way below what we saw at the end of that first session this morning. We've already seen that from Michael Schumacher. We're about to see it from Juan Pablo Montoya. We want to watch him going through these final 2 turns.
Out to the wall.
Good job.
That looked great, didn't it? And let's see whether this puts him fastest overall. Montoya goes fastest, a 1:13.646, 0.3 of a second quicker than Michael Schumacher. And even on that lap, he didn't actually make a particularly fast 3rd sector to the lap, so surprising that, but a very good middle sector in particular, the fastest of anybody so far. Mario Tyson of BMW will be certainly boosted by that, I'm sure, but this is going to be a huge battle in qualifying.
Why has everybody in the Williams pits got a face on them? There's not a hint of pleasure or enjoyment. You saw it from Frank Williams, Mario Tyson, Gerhard Berger, now from Juan Pablo's father. They're all sitting there, standing around, looking at the screens. Oh yeah, well,
I think
come on, where's the emotion?
I think it's a bit of a game of poker at the moment, though, John, as you've been saying, because nobody quite knows what everyone else is up to, and is Ferrari actually going to suddenly come out and be half a second faster in qualifying? Are they still running a bit of fuel? How old are the tyres that they're doing these laps on? Because Michael's been putting in a series of quick laps. The tyres probably got some laps on them already, and if they can go that fast, it's a bit worrying.
Well, just under 0.2 down for Rubens Barrichello, and the Ferrari again through turns 3 and 4 looks really good. Car stable, changes direction nicely, makes the job for the driver much easier. Now here's where we saw Trulli get it all wrong. That's the head-on shot. There's the side view, and Barrichello gets it all wrong. Oh, Rubens, what have you done?
Look at the reaction in the Ferrari pit. Oh dear. Well, the marshal's well placed.
And that's going to be, I think the session may have to be halted, because I don't know if there's any crane available at that part of track to hoist that car away. It will not be able to be pushed away. It's going to have to hoist it onto the back of a wrecker. So I wonder just what Rubens, I don't know why he did that. I mean,
why didn't he come off the brakes? Well, that was the strange thing. He stayed on the brakes.
But I think the only thing was when he got on the grass, his tyres of course get choked. There's the view you can see when he sort of had the brakes on. There is, well, what you would call it, a wrecker. I tell you, I wouldn't want to lift a Formula 1 car with that. Nothing abnormal, then it just ran wide. It turned in, car looked fine, drives straight, then he gets the brakes locked on. He realises he's not going to make the corner, plonks it. Now, right front wheel comes back, hopefully no damage to that chassis, but that will throw a real spanner into the Ferrari team right now, because they may well have to run that spare car. You can see the look of disgust. I mean, they're saying, I can't even begin to think of all the Italian swear words that were being said then.
There's a great reaction from the guy in the middle. He almost seemed to think, well, he's going to get out of this. We've seen a number of people go across the grass, and then suddenly, he hasn't got out of it. He's at the wall. And so poor Barrichello, not a good start at all for him. And, well, last year, of course, at this track, he did qualify the spare after having had an accident. It looks like he might have to do the same this weekend.
Yeah, and I'm not very happy the way that car is being manhandled away to safety. And I can imagine what Ross is thinking, looking at that, seeing the car hanging at a drunken angle. And, I mean, even Rubens is looking at it and saying, hold on, guys, that's my race car. You take it easy, I may want that this afternoon.
Just peering around the corner there. Michael doesn't look particularly happy. Let's take another look. Now, this gives us another view of it.
Ah, there we didn't see it. He locked up the left front too quick. He decides to go straight on, but then for some reason...
he hit the bump.
Well, he hit the bump, yeah, but nevertheless, I don't know whether he could have recovered from it maybe better. It's easy to sit and judge it watching it on screen.
This is Bernoldi having a spin, and did he? No, he didn't hit anything.
No, that's done at the exit of turn 1. So he gets the car fired up and pointing in the right direction, has to drive against the flow of traffic, just lets a car go past and executes that little exercise reasonably well, but of course in full view of the world.
Yep, all the fans down there got a great view of that. Give him a little cheer as he got it pointed in the right direction, and off he goes again. So Bernoldi continues. There is Barrichello's rather sad-looking Ferrari, and I think it was hitting that bump on the grass that particularly, I think he might have got it back, but it just seemed to knock it off to the right, and that was pretty unlucky from Barrichello's point of view. A number of people have been across the grass there this morning and have got away with what looked much worse, but unfortunately for Rubens, it put him straight into the wall, folded that right front wheel back.
I can't imagine the damage is too severe. The suspension components will be plucked off.
Now we're on board here with Takuma Sato, and he's just coming down through into that first chicane, turns 3 and 4. Again, the rev counter up on the left-hand side that you're looking at as we now come up to the corner. He had a spin here earlier on today, keeps it a bit tidier now.
But interesting, just watching the Ferrari as we're being craned away. One of the things that teams do is they shift ballast around, and the way that the Ferrari was very much nose down indicates they're running a lot of weight quite forward in that car here in Canada. And again, that sort of information is a freebie to everybody in the pit lane, because they'll all have seen those photographs or pictures in their monitors on the pit lane itself, pit wall, and information for them. So if somebody's got a problem with handling, they might say, hold on a second, guys, have we got our ballast in the right place?
Well, all part and parcel of it. Coulthard's on a better lap here at the moment than we've seen so far from him. He's 13th at the moment, but we'll see if he improves on this lap. Now, I think we've got an opportunity to speak to Jean Todt. Jean, I hope you can hear us okay. Do you know any more about Rubens' accident there? Jean Todt, can you hear us there in the pit lane in Canada? Well, we seem to be having some communication problems down to the pit wall at the moment, because we were hoping to be able to speak to Jean Todt, but it looks as though it might be a little difficult to link up at the moment.
Well, David Coulthard's top speeds 318 kilometres per hour against 331 for Barrichello. Clearly this is maybe going to be a nearer qualifying run, not in terms of time but in terms of setup, because the way you might find time around any racetrack is to adjust your car. So Michael Schumacher once again back on track.
Now let's try again. Jean Todt, do you know any reason for Rubens Barrichello's accident? Do you know any more about what happened there?
No. He just went out of the car without informing us about what had happened.
Now it looks as though the damage to the car is not too heavy. Would you expect to be able to get that car ready for qualifying?
Well, hopefully, yes.
And the spare car presumably is set up for Michael as normal.
But you know, it takes 10 minutes to put it to Ruben, so it's not a major issue.
Now Michael is on another very quick lap at the moment. He's just gone fastest overall. You must be pretty happy with the way things are going at this early stage.
Well, I mean, things seem to be okay. Tires seem to run well. So let's wait this afternoon.
And have you finalised the tyre choice for this weekend between the two different compounds of Bridgestone?
Seems to be quite balanced, but we will know more tomorrow.
Thank you very much, John, for joining us from the pit wall there, and good luck with the rest of the weekend. Now, looking out back on track again, David Coulthard, well, he's still down in 14th position at the moment.
Yes, and Coulthard's speed, we watched him just prior to having that little interview with John Todd, and he was running relatively low speeds in comparison to what we have seen earlier in the sessions and earlier in other practice sessions as well. And I feel that what David Coulthard and McLaren are doing is running a bit more downforce to go for a lap time with just 19 minutes of this session remaining.
Yeah, we're getting into that period of the free practice now where they really are working towards qualifying. We may see more new tyres go on the cars, or perhaps they'll save them as much as possible for the qualifying and the race tomorrow, but they will certainly be pumping fuel out of the cars as Montoya just locking that right front brake.
Yes, he's just done an out lap. I'm curious to see how quick this run from Montoya is. 20.7 is the time to beat, but he's just under half a second, so this is a used set of tyres that Montoya is on. He's not on new ones, so he may well have saving or keeping those back until the end of the session and try and disguise as much as possible the true potential of this package.
So he's got to attack, but he's also got to avoid making a mistake like Barrichello made just now. So the last thing you need at this point is to throw the car off. Again, the great view of the brakes hard at work into the hairpin, and then flat out acceleration out of that corner and building up very quickly again to over 200 miles an hour, heading down towards the last chicane. He's fairly clear in front. Fisichella's Jordan just ahead. Let's look at the current speed, 328 kilometers per hour. That's one of the faster speeds. Barrichello with the fastest overall, as you see it, just over 331 kilometers per hour, so just over the 210 mile an hour mark. Pretty impressive.
Well, nothing particularly special for Montoya, just about 1.1 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher's time. We don't know whether Michael had a mixture of new and used tyres, whether they were used tyres or were even possibly a brand new set, but certainly 1:13.395 is mighty impressive at this stage of proceedings. And well, the epitome of a British bulldog. Patrick Head, technical director at Williams and part owner of the company, standing there looking and not again showing any hint of what he expects from his drivers or from the car.
Both teams having a reasonably trouble-free time, except for the accident that's now that Barrichello's had. So both Ferrari and Williams managing to get a good number of laps in so far today. Ralph did have a period earlier on where they seemed to have some problems, and he hasn't done quite as many laps as some of the others. Ralph has done some 18 laps, Montoya's done 26.
Well, Frentzen not be too happy with his teammate. He just caught him in the worst possible place, coming around turn 5. Although Benoldi moved over to the left, nevertheless it compromised Frentzen's lap, so he now has got to go through this whole process of finishing this lap and then start it all over again, and that's always the rub of the green on a Grand Prix track. Even in an unofficial session like this, every lap that you lose, it builds up a lot of frustration, and you've got to temper all that. You've got to keep those emotions in control.
Frentzen missed the Grand Prix here last year. He was still suffering the effects of an accident. He was replaced by Ricardo Zonta for this Grand Prix, so didn't race here last year, but has had some reasonable runs in the past, although he's had brake problems on a couple of previous occasions, and of course most memorably got knocked off the track by Michael Schumacher back in 1998.
And in fact it was in the Grand Prix prior to Canada last year, which was the Monaco Grand Prix, where Frentzen rattled his Jordan off the barriers very heavily. That led to him not being able to race here, and it was just all that part of a downward spiral that culminated in Frentzen being just simply fired by team boss Eddie Jordan, and that issue is still very much bubbling away under the surface, and litigation is in process.
Now let's keep an eye on things in the final quarter of an hour or so of this free practice. Ralf Schumacher's on track, as you see. Montoya lets him go through. I don't know whether Montoya's... No, he's not heading in. He's staying out there, just trying to find a bit of clear space, perhaps, as Ralf goes across the line. This lap, reasonably good, 14.399 from Ralf Schumacher. Keeps him fourth, but it's a slight improvement in time, so that's good news, because I think he was running on a used set of tyres, but they're still some way off the fastest that Michael Schumacher has set. He's a second ahead of that on a 1:13.395. Montoya's on a 1:13.646.
Well, through that first speed trap, Ralph was marginally quicker than Montoya, so neither driver en route, but this could be something from Frentzen, pushing again very hard. And Harold Frentzen dropped down to 11th, and I think he's going to remain there. No, he doesn't. He jumps from 11th to 7th. Looking at the times, we didn't see any spectacular increase, but of course they're so close. You're talking of hundredths, maybe down to tenths of seconds difference.
Yes, that midfield group is incredibly close. If you look from Frentzen, who's now, as you say, moved up to 7th, down to 14th place, Jarno Trulli, there's just over 3/10 of a second. 7 cars separated by 3/10 of a second. Incredibly close in that midfield.
And Giancarlo Fisichella, in fact, rounds out the top 6, doing again the job one would expect him to do here in Canada racetrack, which for no particular reason he just seems to always go very, very well on.
Yeah, it suits his style. Monaco and Montreal coming together, 2 tracks that he's always gone well at. Nick Heidfeld here on a reasonable run.
Yeah, Heidfeld doing a good job. First sector, not far away from the best time we've seen so far, and in fact not far away from the theoretical fastest of anybody in that first sector. A little bit of a lock-up, loses momentum as he comes out of the hairpin. That'll cost him a bit of time, and in fact it did cost him probably about half a second in that second sector, that little lock-up, and the corresponding time waited to get back on throttle.
Top speed, let's see what it is as he comes down over the speed trap. 320 kilometres per hour, exactly 200 miles an hour. Not the highest speed that he's had. Nicely out towards the edge without going too far. Currently 5th. I don't think this will move him up much. No, it doesn't. He stays just 1/10 of a second slower than his previous, so he stays there in 5th position.
And there was all that little lock-up down at turn 10. Had he not done that, had he gone around it normally, he was sufficiently quick in the rest of the lap. He would have made an improvement in time, but it's doubtful he would have gotten as far as 4th place. Ralf Schumacher about 4/10 of a second ahead of him. He might have picked up a couple of tenths overall, just simply an improvement.
Now Button's on an improving lap, but I have to say it's not going to put him right to the top of the timesheets. He's way down in 16th at the moment. His teammate Jarno Trulli, he hasn't really done a great deal. He's in 14th position, and Button there almost getting a little bit held up, but I think he's managed to come through there cleanly out of the last corner. So where does this put Button? Currently 16th. Well, it only picks him up 1 place. It puts him into 15th position, and that's again not very encouraging. So the 2 Renaults, 14th and 15th fastest.
Michael Schumacher leaves the pits on a used set of Bridgestone tyres. And we've got just 12 minutes and 15 seconds of this session remaining. McLaren haven't been out for a long time. We saw Coulthard go out, then he came back in again. And both cars sitting in the pits up on their jacks and tyres with heaters on them, just waiting. Whether Coulthard and McLaren are deciding they want to go out when the track is fairly clear. Well, right now is a good time, if that's what you're thinking, to go out on an empty track, or whether they're deciding this is going to be their last effort prior to qualifying and they just want to save as many sets of tyres. Obviously they want to run through 4 sets, and it depends how many they've used since Saturday morning.
Yes, there are some 6 cars on track at the moment, 15 in the pit lane. You're riding on board with Pedro de la Rosa. We've got a camera mounted right at the very front of the Jaguar. Gives you a pretty good idea of how he uses the curbs. Watch the curb on the left, flashes over that and over there on the right, pretty close to the wall there. Look at the speed through this flat-out right-hander. That is impressive at that part of the track. Oh, but a bit wide into the left-hander.
Yes, a little error from Pedro de la Rosa going into turn 6 and 7, of course, then compromised as a result. But I mean, really, what can you say? Jaguar and Minardi's battling for the last 4 places on the grid. Irvine 19th, Webber 20th, de la Rosa 21st, and Alex Young in 22nd. And I'm lost for words. I cannot believe, in fact, that this car on this racetrack, which is a power circuit with Michelin tyres, the Jaguar is as bad as it is.
It is hard to understand, John, particularly when you look at Frentzen's performance with the same engine, because he's currently 7th fastest. And, you know, that is the same engine they're running in the Jaguar.
Ben, my solution is that Jaguar should just abandon this team car, buy arrows, paint the cars green. At least they might get somewhere up the grid, but of course that's a very short term and a very maybe slightly irreverent suggestion.
Well, De La Rosa goes ahead of the 2 Minardis and his teammate, but it's still the 2 Jags and the 2 Minardis at the back. He makes it still, he's still down in 19th place.
Yeah, but watch Mark Webber. He's actually going to do a good job on his flying level. Mark Webber's jumped up now ahead of both Jaguars, and he's now 19th quickest.
So Webber puts the Minardi ahead of the Jaguars again, and I tell you what, Webber's doing an astounding job this year. He really is impressive in that Minardi. Every time he's on track, he's absolutely flat out. And Paul Stoddart was telling us in a long interview with Matt Lorenzo in yesterday's programme just how impressive Mark Webber is. He's been lucky the last 2 years. Fernando Alonso driving for the team last year, and Webber this year. But there's a spin for Eddie Irvine.
And that's down at the hairpin bend. Once again, probably a brake-related issue. Irvine not often spins. I mean, Eddie's a pretty canny, experienced, still a very, very fast driver indeed. Well, let's have a look and see as he brakes. Let's watch and see. Oh, Eddie. Well, there's only so much left. He tried to keep it on. He got the car straightened out. I think he just got back on the power again a little bit quickly. But I mean, that's just purely frustration, feeling that the poor man in a car way below his ability. He has said that he's not going to make his decision about his future at Jaguar until after the Silverstone British Grand Prix. And that's where Jaguar expect their updates to leap them way up the grid. Well, Eddie, don't hold your breath, sunshine.
Take a look at this, John. Michael Schumacher on an improving lap, and we know these are not a new set of tyres. You saw as he went out, he was on used tyres. So this is pretty worrying for everybody, because he's still putting in lap times that are faster than anyone else, and he's on a used set of rubber. Well,
the tyres are... But this car and driver, it doesn't get any better. And Michael Schumacher, once he gets the stability and the balance in the car that he seeks, well, can he improve in a 13.395? If he does, on used tyres, he doesn't by 94 hundredths of a second. But nevertheless, fastest in that second sector, as Felipe Massa comes across and goes fifth quickest. The young Brazilian again starring here for us in Canada.
Yeah, a bit sideways, but the Bridgestone tyre working effectively on the Sauber as well by the looks of things. And that tyre seems to be holding up so well and producing quick laps, lap after lap after lap, and that's going to be so crucial come the race on Sunday.
While all this is going on, outside of the top four, we've got Massa 5th, Heidfeld 6th, Fisichella 7th, Frentzen 8th, the first of the McLarens in 9th. Now, we know they're sitting in the pits, but, how long are they going to sit in the pits? Are they going to let all the field catch and overtake them? Well, DC has decided, or the team, let's say DC doesn't make these decisions, it's done by the team, by Pat Fry, his engineer. With some 7.5 minutes remaining, David Coulthard's going to go out. Kimi Raikkonen still sits in the pits. As we look at Enrique Benoldi, and well, there is Kimi Raikkonen as well. It is Raikkonen now in the pit lane. So 2 McLarens out on track in the space of 30 seconds.
Just 7 minutes to go in the session then. We've got 11 cars covered by 1 second from Felipe Massa in 5th, down to 16th position to Mika Salo. And the battle down there is going to be so intense. It's going to be very, very close to try and get into the top 10. But Michael Schumacher, certainly fastest overall in this session. Barrichello, of course, not running anymore because of crashing out at one of the chicanes. So Barrichello is 3rd fastest, Montoya 2nd, Ralf Schumacher 4th. It's the Williams versus the Ferraris, and that's the battle in qualifying. I think that we're going to see Massa in the Sauber, currently faster than the McLarens, but here comes Coulthard, and onto a quickish lap. De La Rosa trying to get out of his way on the outside of the first corner.
Well, I think it didn't really affect Coulthard too much. And in fact, I want to just correct, Pat Fry is no longer just David's engineer, he is chief engineer for the team, and Coulthard gets it all squirrely on the curbs, obviously trying very hard, 0.2 of a second down. And that little area again, look at the understeer mid-corner. Well, as long as he can carry and maintain the speed, it doesn't really matter the angle of the wheels. It's when it starts to just wash out across the track that then you do get into trouble. But on the bumps, a lot of vertical movement from the McLaren, not too much work from the steering wheel nevertheless. So we'll see what Coulthard can do in this second sector. 20.947 is 0.3 down. He's now over a second. So for David, this lap, well, I think it's of no satisfaction whatsoever. He's almost backed out. Watch his teammate Kimi Raikkonen, he's starting a lap.
Now Kimi Raikkonen apparently is on new tyres, so this will give us a very clear indication of McLaren's qualifying pace. Watch him closely, he will attack these curbs. Oh, look how he tacked that one and almost hit the wall, but he gathered it up. This is a real full commitment lap from Kimi Raikkonen.
And 0.3 of a second down for the Finn. Well, it is in Finnish techno, larger, it is massive attack, maximum attack, Marco Lane attack, whatever.
It is indeed, but it's not enough, is it? With the first checkpoint, not that good really, compared to the fast time that's been set by Michael Schumacher. Heading down towards the hairpin, he will trigger the second check, and look at that. He's backed off surely, because now 2 seconds off. He's slowed it all down, but a bit of a surprise. I thought that he would have maintained the pace throughout the lap.
Well, I think he realised, and the team would have seen very quickly on screen, that this lap was going nowhere. So they've said, OK, back off, save the tyre, and start the process over again. It was almost as if Raikkonen was just over-eager, and that first set of laps.
So let's see as he comes out this time. We know the time's not going to be anything particularly fast. Kimi Raikkonen goes on to another lap. I wonder if he's going to attack. He looks as though he is. It pretty hard over the curves there. Replay of Jacques Villeneuve. What's he been up to? Locking up the left front, running a bit wide. Ooh, did he get it back together? Yes, he did, using the bit of extra tarmac that they've put down there at the first couple of corners. And
really it makes a huge difference, because previously you always had cars getting into trouble in turn one, spinning and then straggling back onto the track. Watch David Coulthard. Oh, Montoya, what are you doing? And that was done at turn 3 and 4, and bits of bodywork. You can see a bit of carbon fibre has come off one of those little bits around the front wing, around the barge boards, and that was on new tyres. So Montoya, very disappointed, 3 minutes to go, and he's in trouble.
Yeah, so that does rather destroy their chance to see how quickly he could go on this new set of tyres, and that's a disappointment. But it's fairly typical here in Montreal, and often we see a red flag.
They got away wrong
there. Yeah, just bouncing over the grass. This is another replay, and you can he wants to carry on, but there you can see the bit of one of the barge boards, I think, coming off.
You can't do the lap again when we don't have enough fuel.
So that's it, he's been told to come in, not sufficient fuel on board, and again everybody in the pit lane will know precisely. I mean, the engineer might have said, "Juan, come in, we want to check the car, we think there's something wrong," but they just said, "We haven't got enough fuel on board." Well,
of course, in qualifying, always running just the minimum amount. He's not very happy.
I'll let you know in the garage.
Well, I don't know what the damage is, if it's just simply on the nose or whether it's something behind. Before it is the side of the barge boards, it's gone, or bits would have looked like they've disappeared. So we go back to the local boy, Jacques Villeneuve.
Yeah, now let's see whether this is an improvement. Yes, he's 11th at the moment. This should be a better lap from Villeneuve coming up here. Put him into the top 10, and that's what he's aiming for here this afternoon in qualifying itself. Cross the line, and it puts him 9th, so just inside the top 10. Reasonable effort that from Villeneuve. He'll be pleased if he actually qualifies there, but that might be a different story come the official 1 hour session.
So let's look and see what Kimi Raikkonen got up to again in turn 3 and then in turn 4. Oh, dear me, was that Villeneuve?
Oh dear, that was close, wasn't it?
It was Penis, in fact, it was Olivier Penis. What was Penis doing? Because he wasn't aware. I mean, Kimi Raikkonen on full throttle coming through exit of turn 4 and managed to slide that McLaren between the wall and the BAR, and there was not much room to spare.
No, he was committed. He had to really go for that move, and Panis really not aware, I don't think, exactly where Raikkonen was. Montoya has to get out of the car then. End of the session for him without that chance to really see how the car was in full qualifying trim. His mistake on the brakes, putting him onto the grass. Well, let's hope that he can get it sorted out for the race itself. Car 5 missed the apex of turn 15. Now, you might see that flash up now and then. That is the last corner where we've seen a number of cars, particularly yesterday, not so much today, but let's take a look at this. This was where it happened. And that's what they do. They go across the green. Now, I think what will happen, that message will flash up. Raikkonen on a good lap here. That message will flash up, and that time won't be allowed in qualifying.
And in theory, this is the lap that he had to take that massive avoiding action with Olivier Penis. So Kimi Raikkonen still looking for further improvement right now, running in 5th place, about a 10th of a second away from Barrichello, whose car, of course, still, and well, unfortunately doesn't make it. So Raikkonen ends up in 5th place, a place very familiar with. As now we watch Olivier Panis on a wave yellow flag down, and this time it's Felipe Massa who's managed to get it onto the grass. Quite difficult to do these days down at the exit of turn 1, but well, inexperience probably led him there.
So we're almost to the end of this morning free practice session. Ferrari on top for Michael Schumacher ahead of Montoya. Ralph's requiring a push.
Out of fuel.
Yes, I would imagine that he's run out of fuel. So that ends his session, of course. But with only a few seconds until the checkered flag comes out, it doesn't make too much difference. Villeneuve out of his car after that improvement, up to 9th place for him. Teammate Panis is 12th fastest. And there we are. End of the free practice session. And Ferrari now, look here. Michael Schumacher, is it,
yes,
on a lap?
He always times it, gets across the start-finish line with about 3 or 4 seconds before the flag comes out, hoping for a clear track. Unfortunately for him, he hasn't. He's got Eddie Irvine ahead of him. Whether Eddie will come into play or not, Eddie would have seen him. Yes, he's going to pull over to the right of track. Oof, did he ever pull over? Because Michael was all over him like a rash as he came out of turn 6 down through into this very tight right left place that Barrichello stuck his Ferrari into the advertising hoarding on the right of track. Nothing particularly special at 20 point. Well, it is actually special. 20.792. We'll see Michael Schumacher what he's going to do on the exit of this second sector, and the time.
Yeah, he's a little bit down. Irvine, meanwhile, has stopped, so he pulled out of the way, but not just that, he was actually in trouble somehow. Whether he's run out of fuel, I don't know. But Michael Schumacher will be able to complete the lap here as he comes out of the last corner. Didn't really run as wide as he might have done. I think he's just experimenting a little bit. Across the line he goes, a 13.980, still pretty impressive on used tyres, because that's still faster than everyone else except Montoya in this whole free practice session. So Schumacher does look to be in good shape, looking for pole position number 7 in the past 9 Grand Prix here. That would be really quite some record. He has a stunning qualifying record. This was when Irvine pulled out of the way. Yeah,
I suspect that Irvine also very low on fuel. We've seen that being the problem for Montoya. Wasn't allowed to compete another lap, and Michael now makes his way back. He will do it at racing speeds, although you're meant to slow down once you've taken the checkered flag. It's somewhat of a subjective view as to what slowing down is, and as long as there's no other traffic out there going slowly and you still going at racing speeds, well, I think there's no big particular problem.
So Takuma Sato ending up this session down in 18th place. Fisichella, his teammate, moved up the order a little bit more. He was 10th, just inside the top 10. So Sato is still struggling a little bit for pace. We'll have to see how he gets on in qualifying this afternoon. The two Toyotas as well, down in 17th and 19th position. So Toyota I expected a little more from. I have to say, they've got a very strong engine. They've always been very stable on the brakes, but it doesn't look as though Toyota are going to be that strong. The Jaguars are struggling, as we've seen. Peter Windsor's caught up with Niki Lauda.
Niki, encouraging time there from Pedro.
Yeah, I'm in the car. And Pedro seems to go well in the moment, but let's wait for qualifying.
Well, is it the car or is it Pedro that's looking good?
Our car is not changed at all. But here this circuit helps us a little, because it's basically only accelerating and going through chicane. So if you have good brakes here, which we have, it helps.
So Niki Lauda could drive it then?
Sorry?
So Niki Lauda could drive it then?
I don't think so.
How's it going with Eddie at the moment?
He has still some setup problems he's just trying to fix. So we're going to make sure that for qualifying then both cars are the same.
What sort of technical problems?
Not just to set the car well. He's not happy with the balance.
What does he like from the car that Pedro is different from Pedro?
To drive quicker into corners. So if the rear end is loose, he doesn't like it.
And what do you think about this?
No, we have to try and set it up for him, because if the car is the way the driver wants it, he can go quick.
And how does it work with James Courtney driving the car? James Courtney, the test driver you have two different styles with your race drivers. How is it for the test driver in that situation?
Complicated, because he doesn't know in what direction you should test, but this is normal. But every team has the same problem.
Arrow's looking good with the same engine.
Yeah, we have a different engine here today, the first time we try one, but there's not much difference really. But in the race tomorrow we have the same engines again.
No, what I'm saying, Arrows look good with more or less the same engine as you, perhaps not quite as good an engine.
I'm very happy how they perform. It really shows how good the engine is. So now we have to make the car go quicker.
Okay, best of luck, Niki. Thank you.
Well, Niki Lauda there talking to Peter Windsor.